What is the desolation according to the book of Daniel? Let's look at the definition of desolation. Laying of waste, ruin, destruction, havoc, or ravage, according to the Webster's Dictionary. The prophet Daniel saw three specific desolations in prophecy. Daniel chapter 1 verses 26 and 27, the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem in 70 A.D. In Daniel chapter 7, with various verses you can see on the page, you'll see the desolation or persecution of the Christian church in Europe, which was called the Papal Supremacy number 1, which was from 538 to 1798 A.D. You can also see in Daniel chapter 12 that there is a desolation. You can see it as the desolation or persecution as described in Revelation 13, will be known as the Papal Supremacy number 2, which is coming in the future. The Papal Supremacy number 2, which will be coming in the future, will be different from that which existed from 538 to 1798. In Europe, the Papal Supremacy number 2, as described in Revelation 13, will be not merely over Europe, but all over the world. His deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, which is Revelation 13:3. And it says, and it was given him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, to desolate them, according to Revelation 13:7. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, Revelation 13:7. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life, Revelation 13:8. As many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed or desolated, Revelation 13:15. Keep in mind that we looked at the definition of desolation, and it says laying waste, ruin, destruction, havoc, or ravage. And all these words are associated. The abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, quoted in Mathew 24:15, is the same abomination of desolation mentioned in Daniel 12:7 and 11. And this Daniel 12 prophecy is a parallel of Revelation 13. In every prophetic timeline of Daniel, Rome is brought to view. If we look at Daniel chapter 2, the image, the legs of iron, is Rome. Daniel chapter 7, the beast, the fourth beast, is little horn. Daniel chapter 8, the horns, the little horn, transgression of desolation. In Daniel chapter 11, the kings, verses 15 to 45, the abomination that maketh desolate. And in Daniel chapter 12, there is no symbols, only a name, which is the abomination that maketh desolate. In the first and second video that I did regarding this study, I mentioned to you that we have to apply hermeneutical principles to some of the parts of the Bible, like some of the parts of the Bible that have symbols like beasts and like a great sea and horns and so on and so forth. Those had to be decoded by hermeneutical principles, even the Deir principle. But just to review, if you look at Daniel chapter 12, there is no symbol, but there are only names. This is just like a little cheat. So that means Daniel chapter 12 has to be taken literally. Going on, the legs of the image and iron and clay representing Rome continue until all the chaff is blown away. The fourth beast of Daniel chapter 7 continues even with its little horn until Daniel saw it destroyed and given to the burning flame. Daniel chapter 7:11 is what I just, the context is from. It says there, in every timeline, Rome continues until the end of time. It is one of the main characters of Daniel and Revelation. It is in every age since its beginning, the great persecutor and desolator of God's people. In the days of Jesus, it was the Roman Empire or pagan Rome which made desolate or persecuted God's people. It was Rome which ruled over the Jews, gave authority to crucify Jesus, and persecuted the early Christians. It was papal Rome which persecuted, desolated the Christian church according to the prophecies of Daniel 7:25, Revelation 12:6 and 14, and Revelation 13:2 and 3. For 1,260 years during what was known as the papal superiority over Europe. It was papal Rome which received a deadly wound in 1798, but which has been healing ever since. It is Rome in the future that will be a healed power. In Revelation 13, it will establish papal supremacy number 2. It will reign not merely over Europe, but all the world shall wonder after the beast, according to Revelation 13:3-7. In the days when Jesus answered his disciples, he referred to the armies of Rome as the abomination of desolation. He spoke of Rome as the abomination and the destruction of Jerusalem, which was to occur in 70 AD. As a desolation, it is a fact that the Roman Empire fell and Rome was sacked in 476 AD. But in its place arose papal Rome, and it is this phase of Rome on which we need to fasten our vision. The abomination of desolation, according to Daniel chapter 12. The abomination of desolation mentioned in Daniel 12 is as follows. And from the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. That is Daniel chapter 12:11. Jesus interpreted this term found in Matthew 24:15 and defined in Luke 21:20 to refer to the armies of Rome. This interpretation should be sustained. In the days of Christ, the abomination referred to pagan Rome, the Roman Empire. It must be remembered that the Roman Empire was succeeded by papal Rome. It is papal Rome which fulfilled the prophecies of Daniel chapter 8 and 11 in reference to the abomination of desolation from 538 to 1798. Therefore, any timeline or any end-time application must refer to papal Rome. It is papal Rome which again fulfills the prophecy of Daniel 12:11 in the future. The abomination of desolation described papal Rome in its persecutions, past, present, and future. It was Rome which desolated Jerusalem in 70 AD. It was papal Rome which desolated the saints for 1,260 years, which we can find a reference in Daniel chapter 8. And it will be papal Rome which will desolate, persecute God's people in the future as designated in Daniel 12. Therefore, the term abomination of desolation is specifically the papacy involved in all persecution and described as a future threat in Daniel chapter 12. The abomination of desolation of Daniel 12:11 is papal Rome in a future persecution. If there is one truth which Satan would obscure, it is this. If there is one truth needed to understand the three timelines of Daniel 12, it is this, that the abomination of desolation is papal Rome, since it will persecute the saints just before Jesus comes. It is the beast of Revelation 13 and the focus of the third angel's warning message of Revelation 14. Dual application in regards to Daniel chapter 12 and Matthew 24. Tell us, they said, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? Jesus did not answer his disciples by taking up separately the destruction of Jerusalem and the great day of his coming. He mingled the description of these two events. Had he opened to his disciples future events as beheld them, they would have been unable to endure the sight. In mercy to them, he blended the description of the two great crises, leaving the disciples to study out the meaning for themselves. Brethren, we are the disciples too that must study everything out for ourselves. When he referred to the destruction of Jerusalem, his prophetic words reached beyond that event to the final conflagration in that day when the Lord shall rise out of his place to punish the world for their iniquity, when the earth shall disclose her blood and shall no more cover her slain. This entire discourse was given not from the disciples only, but for those who should live in the last scenes of this earth's history. This is according to Desire of Ages, page 628. The prophecy which he uttered was twofold in its meaning. While foreshadowing the destruction of Jerusalem, it prefigured also the terrors of the last great day. That was according to Great Controversy page 25. The Savior's prophecy concerning the visitation of judgments upon Jerusalem is to have another fulfillment, a dual application, or parallel application, of which that terrible desolation was but a faint shadow. In the fate of the chosen city we may behold the doom of a world that has rejected God's mercy and trampled upon his law. Great Controversy, page 36. The disciples ask a dual question. When shall these things, the destruction of Jerusalem, be? Mathew 24:3. What shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? Jesus gave them a dual answer. Not until the prophetic expositor understands the dual application of Mathew 24:3 can he comprehend the dual reference to the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet in Mathew 24:15. The Mathew 24:15 prophecy has a dual application, but the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet applies to three historical events. Daniel chapter 9, 26 and 27, the 70 AD destruction of Jerusalem. Daniel chapter 7, verses 8, then chapter 11, 31, the 538 to 1798 papal supremacy number 1, or persecutions in Europe. Daniel chapter 12, verses 7 and 11, the future end-time healed papal supremacy number 2 over all the world described in Revelation 13. Valid applications have been made from Matthew chapter 24:15 to the abomination of desolation, referring to the 538 to 1798 papal supremacy. The early Advent pioneers and Ellen G. White, under inspiration of God, made this application. However, today we recognize that this was a secondary application because it was not yet a fulfillment of the terrors of the last day, nor was it yet the final doom of the world that has rejected God's mercy and trampled upon his law. Definition of primary. Primary means the first in importance and not necessarily in time or sequence. Secondary refers to that of a lesser importance. Today we recognize that the secondary application of Matthew 24:25 to the 538-1798 papal supremacy must give way to a future end-time application of primary importance to the last generation, who will surely see the terrors of the last day. Therefore, a future application of Matthew 24 and Daniel 12 now have become of primary importance from the vantage viewpoint of the last generation. It is obvious that there are two primary applications to Matthew 24:15. A, destruction of Jerusalem AD 70, and B, the end of the world. The secondary application pertained to 538 to 1798 papal supremacy. If we look at the diagram below, we'll see that the primary dual application of the abomination of desolation of Matthew 24 is basically the primary application is, which is number 1, is the Daniel 9, 26 to 27, which refers to Jerusalem being destroyed in 70 AD. And the important application, or the first primary application, was the actual end of the world, which is Daniel chapter 12 from verses 7 to 11. Now, in the middle of that is the secondary application, and it's from 538 to 1798 when there was a papal supremacy. The ruin of Jerusalem was a symbol of the final ruin that shall overwhelm the world. The prophecies that received a partial fulfillment in the overthrow of Jerusalem have a more direct application to the last days. We are now standing on the threshold of great and solemn events. A crisis is before us, such as the world has never witnessed. That is MB 120 of the spirit of prophecy. Till next time, we'll go into the first application of Mathew 24:15. Please, of course, share with your friends, subscribe to my page. If the Lord is impressing you to send a donation to support this ministry, please, my contact information will be up on the screen. God bless you. I'm excited. I pray you're also excited about the events that will come in the future to signal God's people of the beginning of the end times. God bless you.